Good morning, Daylighters. No, I'm not going to sing for you. I just wanted the big intro. The song you just heard is called Creep by Radiohead. It came out in the early 90s, and it's arguably the most covered song of all time. As you can see in the clip, just so many people have sung it, so many people have made it their own. And the front man of the band, Tom York, kind of thinks the song is garbage. He's talked about how much he despises it. He's got a great contempt for it. And he thinks the lyrics are, and I quote, pretty crap. But what's really interesting is, as you saw in the mashup, it's highly covered. This week it has, you can't see it, it's the red circle, so I brought it up for you. This is how many views the video has on YouTube. 1,413,000,000 and some change. That's representative of about a fifth of the population of Earth. But, like 12 of those are mine, so. It's been featured in movies, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Book of Life, Happily Ever After, The Social Network, Heretic, and more. It's placed often in the top 100 songs of all time. And Tom York thought it was pretty crap. One person who reviewed it called it obsessive, self-lacerating rage. It's got this tone of melancholy and pain. And I think I want to talk about just the lyrics briefly because it's kind of tapped into the collective consciousness of like an entire generation. People feel this song. People connect with this song. Here's how the lyrics go. It says, when you were here before, I couldn't look you in the eye. That right there starts it off with its meaning. If you can't look someone in the eye, it's like they're too good for you, or too big for you, or too beautiful for you. And then it goes on to say, you're just like an angel, and your skin makes me cry. Now, it's not clear whether the skin makes him cry because it's so beautiful and he's overwhelmed, or if he's just jealous. The song is a mix-up of those emotions, of seeing something so beautiful, so untouchable, so distant, and admiring it, but then also not being able to look it in the eye and feeling bad about it. It's a comparison. The song is about comparison. Comparison of myself versus something beautiful, which eventually becomes unattainable. It says, you float like a feather in a beautiful world. I wish I was special. You can use flamin', flipping, freaking, or there's another F word that fits in there too, there's a sanitized version of that one was sanitized heavily for church. There's a minor profanity that I muted. I avoid profanity because profanity is profane, cussing is cursing. But this song, it almost feels just perfect because he has this profane vision of her beauty. It's like you're so beautiful that you make me sick. You're so beautiful and I can't touch you, I can't come close to you. And you'll see that he says, he doesn't say, I want you, I need you, I want to be close to you. He says, I wish I was special. I don't belong here. So the girl in the song is a side quest. It's just a happening. The song is about him. The song is about him seeing himself as less than, comparing himself and finding himself lacking. And he continues. He says, I don't care if it hurts. I want to have control. I want a perfect body. I want a perfect soul. You notice he doesn't say, I want you. It's not about the girl. It's about him. He wants, it's this self-laceration that was talked about, this obsessive self-laceration. And it's almost like a caste system that he describes, where you are too much for me. I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. I don't belong here. And it's self-loathing. And it's self-loathing brought on by comparison. And it's elusive. It's unattainable. It's always just out of reach. It says she's running out the door. She's running out. She run. And she is a vision of the he that he wants to be. He wants her to see him the way he sees her. And once again, it's all about him. It's all about comparison. And so I know it feels a little wedged in there, but the vibe of the song felt right for this 3 weeks of rambling on humility that I'm doing. And we're on the third week. And I titled this sermon, Comparison, the Thief of Joy. And it's also a thief of love and a thief of peace. It's a thief of a lot of goodness in our lives. The vibe of the song speaks of this. He has no peace because he's compared himself and found himself lacking. And if I only accomplish one goal today, it's that I want you to read a book. It's called The Cost of Ambition: How Striving to Be Better Than Others Makes Us Worse by Miroslav Volf. Anytime I can hear his voice, it speaks to me. It makes a difference in my life. And so in the book, he talks about the waters we swim in, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, and how becoming better versus becoming better than. And living a life of comparison doesn't end well. It doesn't lead to good things. It doesn't lead to human thriving. Reading this book has been like kind of an expose on my heart and my emotions and my motivations. It's made me, because when I first started reading the book, I thought, I don't compare myself to people very often at all. I probably compare myself to people less than other people do. I have this vision of my life. Like I've told you guys that I have a file on my computer called If I Die, and that's for my wife to know the passwords and how far I got in our photo albums and what music I want played at my funeral and what I want told to my kids. And I've got in there that I want anyone to, it's humbling and it's humiliating. If anybody wants to speak up, like there to be a time during the service where people can come up and talk about me. And I'm like nixing that. I'm reading this book and I'm nixing that. I have this vision of being well-traveled and physically fit, a faithful family man. And I want to be seen as somebody who thinks deeply about complicated topics. And I want people to think that I'm close to God. And what I've discovered in reading the book is that I always thought that I want those things for those things' sake. Like I want to be well-traveled for travel's sake. But what I'm finding is I want people to think of me as well-traveled because well-traveled people are kind of cool. And what does it mean to be well-traveled? It's got to be compared to something. And it means that I did more traveling than the average Joe. And the book says that doesn't lead to thriving, that kind of mentality. Like I said, it's embarrassing to admit it. I even keep a list on my phone of all the countries I've been to, and I've tried to weasel that into that funeral service. Like how can that be announced? And it's just so wrong. But just like in Creep, he's not after the girl so much as he's wanting to be the kind of person that she would want. I've discovered that when I go on vacation, I want to go to a new country so I can add to that list of countries I've been to out of some kind of exceptionalism, like he's exceptionally well-traveled. Because well-traveled people, man, we all want to be well-traveled, and he gets to be that person. I don't want to go to places I've been before because that doesn't add to my list. And so then that begs the question of, do I really enjoy travel, or do I really want to be known as someone well-traveled? And the book points out that we all swim in those waters. Like even announcing that I don't use profanity. Like, is that posturing myself in some kind of exceptionalism? Some kind of, well, I don't use cuss words. I'm a good preacher. I want my kids to know that I was an excellent volleyball player at one time, and I played golf, and we'll get into that in a little while. And there's a difference between being unique and seeking exceptionalism. And we're all called to be unique. Some will travel, some don't want to travel. Some play the guitar, some don't. But when we start to think, I want people to see me play guitar so that they'll think I'm cool or awesome And it gets really mixed up because there's nothing wrong with standing out. And there's pure motives. So if my motive for traveling was to let my kids see the world and expand their horizons, that's probably a fairly pure motive. But if it's that I want Whit to think, wow, my kids are cool, there's something skewed about that. And the book highlights that. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the big fish swimming by two little fish and saying, how's the water treating you? And the little fish says to the other, what the heck is water? And I'm realizing that this aspect of my life, this wanting to be exceptional, even in preaching this, I want you guys to see me as really transparent, as really humble. It's like it's in my pores. It's in every cell of my being that I want to stand out. And I can't speak for you guys, but I think that's a fairly universal thing. I think everybody deals with it. And again, there's nothing wrong with using your talents. There's nothing wrong with being well-traveled or physically fit. Those aren't. But if you seek physical fitness so that people will admire your body above other people's bodies, it feels unhealthy. Who's heard of the Fire Fest? Definitely check out the documentaries. There's 2 of them out there. The Fire Fest was this festival. It was a music festival on a private island that a bunch of musical geniuses bought and marketing geniuses bought. And they were putting together the Fire Fest, which was this exclusive festival for the wealthy. Like tickets were multiple thousands of dollars. And you had to pay for your flights there, and you could get a private cabana for $12,000 for the 2 days of the fest. And it was advertised showing hot people on boats, drinking and dancing and having a good time, and jumping off the boat into the crystal clear ocean, and showed this lagoon and just this beautiful, beautiful island. And thousands of people bought tickets and thousands of people showed up. And there was no festival. It was almost a wasteland. Some of the pictures of the food, and they were trapped. They were trapped on the island for multiple days because they had been scammed. And I know that's kind of a wedged-in illustration, but there's this beauty that we strive for. There's this exceptionalism that we desire. There's this superficiality that we dive into. And it leads to dryness. It's insatiable. In the book, Miroslav Volf mentions Jean-Jacques Rousseau in his work, and it's been said that his teaching and his works were the spearhead of the Enlightenment. Like he's a very important figure in history. And he talked about the difference between human needs and constructed desires, which are comparison-based. And he used these. Volf quotes Rousseau, and I think it's a paraphrase. I couldn't find the quote from Rousseau. But he says that this hunger for comparison, this desire to be superior, this desire to appear as exceptional, not necessarily to be exceptional, but that others will have the perception of your exceptionality. He calls it a pernicious vacuity, which when he drinks his tea, he raises his pinky. There's no question about it. Pernicious, of course, is like a lingering, expanding, and ever-present like nastiness. It's not just something that eats at you, it's something that constantly eats at you. And a vacuity is like an emptiness, it's a vacuum. And we live in a world now that the Fire Fest is like a microcosm of the entirety of our lives. There's companies that make billions and trillions of dollars by feeding this pernicious vacuity. It creates the vacuity in you. It makes you hunger for more. People that are clothed better than you are, better looking than you, bigger muscles than you, eating nicer food than you get to eat, and so forth. They flash images of cooler clothes than you, beautiful people, and better cars than you have. Anybody ever feel frumpy at the mall? It's the only time in my life I ever use the word frumpy. I don't know why, but like it's like I'm a creep, I'm a weirdo, I don't belong here. I show up at the mall and I think, I'm frumpy. I don't know what it is. I tend to believe that there are literal demons that hang out at malls and whisper the word frumpy. I can't say for sure, and I don't know exactly what my theology on that is, but it happens every time. And movies show people having more romance than you, and pornography shows people having better sex than you, and there's always images of people funnier, smarter. The wit, Saturday Night Live creates wit. There's professional writers that write comedies where the back and forth banter is something unattainable for the average person, but it makes you feel like everybody's funnier than me. Everybody's sharper than me. And there's a couple reasons why this vacuity is so pernicious. This vacuum that's created in us is so damaging. And one is because there will always be someone, quote, better. It's a stick and a carrot. If you want to get in shape, you're always going to see memes and GIFs and videos of somebody with a better body than you. And so it's a vacuity in that it never gets filled. It never gets satisfied. And there's organizations out there and people out there that make a lot of money by feeding that. And not only is it a carrot on a string, but it's an illusory carrot. It's not just unattainable, it's not actual. No one escapes the mundane. There's a reason that covetousness makes the list of the 10 Commandments, and pride and envy and greed and lust are mentioned as, there is no official list of the 7 deadly sins. That may surprise you. But these words, greed and envy and lust, make those lists. And the reason they make the list is because they destroy, because they'll eat you alive. The desire to be like someone else or better than someone else or in competition with someone else will eat you up. There's the BFLPE, which is the big fish, little pond effect. It's been well documented that kids who go to Ivy League schools, they were typically valedictorians of their class, had excellent, if not perfect GPAs, real high scores on the ACT. They were, in some sense, floating like a feather in a beautiful world. But what they find out is when they show up at Yale or they show up at MIT or Harvard, that's bad when you can't pronounce Harvard. There's something off about that. It's a strange, but I pronounce it better than the average Joe, so I'm good. But there's this like emotional disconnect that happens for these kids who have been top of their class when now they're thrown in with thousands of people better than them. And their self-esteem suffers. And it's the big fish, little pond effect. Because all these things, it leaves them saying, I wish I was special, you're so freaking special. And I don't belong here. It's common for kids who show up at Ivy League schools to have imposter syndrome in the sense that I don't belong here. There's people so much sharper than me, so much better equipped than me, so much richer than me. And in some sense, it's a vacuity because it's always comparative and someone will always be better. You may have heard of the guy that wakes up every morning at 8 a.m. and he gets 3 meals a day. He reads 2 books a week. He has sex 2 or 3 times a week. He goes on long walks outside. And if he could just get out of jail, I really debated this part. But it's the point that you don't ever get to see the real thing. You don't ever see the truth of people. Everyone struggles. Just because they have a boat and can jump off into crystal clear waters doesn't mean they're satisfied. In fact, what happens is when you get everything you want, my understanding is you suffer because you realize it ain't there. That thing you've been wanting, that thing you've been desiring, it just isn't there. And so it's unwise to compare yourselves, as the scriptures tell us, because there will always be somebody better than you. But then this pernicious vacuity gets even worse because there will always be someone, quote, worse than you. And now you're living in comparison. Either one, you feel inferior because they're better than you, or you feel superior because you're better than them. And humility has no place in superiority or inferiority. We've talked about humility being alignment with yourself, who you are. You either have prideful aggrandizement or shameful self-laceration. And you can't win. You cannot win when you live your life comparatively. The scriptures say when you measure yourselves by one another and compare yourselves with one another, it says themselves. It's describing some people. It says when they measure themselves, but I added this myself. When you measure yourselves by one another and compare yourselves with one another, you are not wise. We've talked about this in the last couple of weeks. You're not more special than anyone else, and you are God's favorite. Go back 2 weeks and see that sermon if you missed it. Because dang it, it's a better sermon than the average sermon out there. I rephrased it this week as you're important, but you're not more importanter. I'm feeling pretty confident in my exceptionalism when it comes to grammar at this point. We oftentimes don't care about being better. We want to be perceived as better. That's the real hunger. And it places our satisfaction and our contentment in a tentative place, chasing an illusory carrot that's either superior or inferior, but never satisfied. Every now and then I bring out this flex that I played golf with a guy named Wally Armstrong. And I've gotten to play golf on a couple of occasions with Wally. And Wally was on the cover of Golf Magazine. He still holds the rookie record for scoring in the Masters tournament. And I like telling this story because it makes me look cool. I didn't golf well with Wally. In fact, there was one hole I remember playing with Wally that I ended up in a bunker, a sand bunker. And it took me like 3 or 4 shots to get out of the bunker. And I scored an 11 on the hole. It was like a par 4, so I'm 7 over par. And I remember hitting the shot and then looking to see if Wally had seen me. And being thankful that I was down deep in a bunker so he didn't get to see my 4 attempts at knocking this ball out of the sand. And when I came up out of the bunker and saw him, he was sitting over in the cart doing something else, and he was not paying attention to me at all. But I want you to see that at that point, I was not enjoying the golf. I was striving for the perception that I was a good golfer from somebody who was like deity in the golf world. It ruined my game because anybody who knows golf knows that tension kills the golf swing. I wasn't loving golf. The reality is no one is as invested in my awesomeness as I am. And then I'm also kind of an idiot. This guy had beaten Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer at the Masters. And I, for some reason, am making it my point, like my goal in life for him just to see me hit a pure ball, for him to think I'm a good golfer. And it was really just, it's not just unwise, it's pretty stupid. I think about my golf score, my golf game for so many years, and I had this goal to beat 80, to get under 80, because only X percentage, here's the comparison part, only 2% of golfers ever break 80, something like that. And so I strove and finally got to where I was consistently breaking 80, and I lost all zest for the game. I didn't care about the game at all after that. I had achieved my goal of being able to say I'm a golfer in the 70s. And it just begs the question of, did I enjoy golf at all? Or was I enjoying the perception of imaginary people appreciating my golf score, of being able to say in the clubhouse, yeah, I shot 76 today. Dang, I'm good. Don't you think I'm good? And then we live to impress God in some sense, and God is like the walliest of the wallies. Wally cleaned up at the Masters. And there was no way I was going to impress this guy with my golf game. There is no way you're going to ever impress God with your life, with the influence you have, the morality that you've ascribed to, the acts of service that you've done. Like, as a good father, he wants those things for your life, for those things' purpose. He wants you to serve because of the love and the peace and the joy that it will stir up within you because he cares about you. But he doesn't think, dang, you're good. There's only 2 times in all of Scripture that I can think of where Jesus seemed impressed with people. And they both had to do with faith. It says, when Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have never found anyone in Israel with such great faith. So it says he was amazed at faith. And then elsewhere it says he was amazed at their lack of faith. I'd say it'd be pretty uncommon to make Jesus go, wow. But faith or the lack thereof. And faith is in the Greek pistis. My wife is preaching next week. She's going to talk about this, I think. But it just means trust. And trust is an entirely different way of living than striving for exceptionalism. It's grounded in, if humility is living in the actuality of what you are, striving is something else entirely. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. You're not going to impress God by doing impressive things. You're going to impress God by relaxing and staying calm, knowing that your identity and what grounds you as a good human and grants thriving to your life is simply humility before him and being who you are. That's the stuff that gets God. And I want to say God gets excited about it. It's more like that's his goal for you, is that you'll be comfortable. Nothing wrong with being unique. There's holy and pure ways to be exceptional, to stand out. Our musicians use their gifts up here, and they're great musicians. And I can't speak for them, but they may want to be seen as great musicians so that someone will think they're valuable, or they might play music because they love music and because they love leading people into the presence of God. And it's a heart issue more than anything else. So trust is the way. And as I continue my rambling on humbling, I want to revisit this passage that we've read over the last 2 weeks. It says, what do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as though you did not? I think about being well-traveled or shooting a good golf score. And there's a lot of privilege tied up in that. There's a lot of privilege wrapped around those things. If you got an education, your education was partially you working. And I can't do the statistics on it. I don't know what percentage is me versus what percentage is gifts that are being received. But I have to think that the balance way favors the gifts that are received. So whatever it is about you that makes you cool or unique or special or exceptional, odds are a lot of it was out of your control and it came to you. And so then it asks the question, where then is boasting? Why do you boast as though you did not receive it? And I'll close with this verse once again. When you measure yourselves by one another and compare yourselves with one another, you are not wise.